there's people calling Tulsi Gabbard right now the biggest disappointment of all time, in the
Since
sense
Bernie,
that
I don't know. Bernie had a longer history.
Bernie never got into the position that he fought for.
That's true.
Tulsi did. And that's where we're saying the biggest disappointment, because you got the people that were pissed off at the Democrats over to Trump. You helped bring them over and made them feel comfortable voting for someone
Tulsi and Kennedy.
That you didn't have to be a MAGA, a self-identifying MAGA to vote for him, because it was a coalition of people that were fed up with and so let's start with who Tulsi Gabbard used to be. This is what she used to tweet out back in 2019, 2020, and she actually ran for president back in 2010. We're going to get to that. She had a very big moment for herself on that Democratic stage. What? Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat? Oh yeah, she was a Democrat, all right. Here's her critique of then President Trump back in 2019. Trump says he doesn't want war with Iran, but that's exactly what he wants, because that's exactly what Saudi Arabia, Netanyahu, Al-Qaeda, Bolton, Haley, and other neolibs want. That's what he put first, not America. Very well said, Tulsi. And as a Democrat at the time, we needed that. We needed that type of voice coming from the blues. Very cool that she did that back then. She even goes on in 2020, in April 2020, she goes on to tell us how effed up it was that you have this Graham and Bolton cheering on war against Iran. This regime change war. This is what she ran this, and this was her campaign. She ran on this campaign on the DNC stage, trying to get the nominee that time around. Obviously didn't work, but this is her doubling down on, we need to stop the regime change wars. We need to stop the psychopaths like Graham and Bolton, who are still at it today. Isn't that crazy? It's the same people. The Lindsey Grahams and the John Boltons are still parading around, salivating at their foaming at the mouth for more war. It's insane. And then she's selling this T-shirt. Some people are asking on Twitter, is this T-shirt still available at Tulsi Gabbard's website? No War with Iran. Hard to tell if she'd still be selling it right now. She might actually make some money if people would go and just to buy it to spite her right now. She should still have it for sale.
And really quick, that actually adds to my argument. If Tulsi knew this back in Trump's last term, do we think that Trump had some form of revelation over the past few years? And he was like, you know what? Even though I know all these bad things about Israel, and my mentor was Roy Cohn, who's been working with, the Zionist deep state for decades, I've had a change of heart now. And now I actually want to use all my knowledge to play 5D chess. Me personally, I don't see it. But Tulsi knew it back then. We all knew it back then. And that's why I truly believe that Trump took it easy, because it is true. In Trump's first term, he was less of a warmonger than both Obama before him and Biden after him. However, he set up the expectations, because guess what? Obama didn't start any new wars in his first term either. And then Libya happened. So now we're in Trump's second term. So this really could have, I think it was the long play. And I don't think Trump had a change of heart. I think that Trump, who Tulsi was calling out before she, switched over to the dark side, I think that's the Trump that we still have today. And he's probably maybe a little bit smarter now because he has some experience and he has people like Tulsi and RFK around him to act as sheepdogs. But I will say, I do see a couple positive signs from RFK, but definitely Tulsi. This is the equivalent of RFK coming out and saying, you know what? COVID vaccines are safe and effective. Like what Tulsi did is the equivalent of RFK doing that. And RFK hasn't gone that far yet. So yeah.
Well, let's be clear on what she did. Yeah. This is the greatest flip we've ever seen. Yeah. We had this be released in March. This was literally in March, as she's up for the DNI, that's the Director of National Intelligence, and she's telling us that they're continuing to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Soleimani has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. This is her statement officially as the being on the selected committee. So she had to go through all those hearings, just like you said, RFK had to go through all the hearings, and she presented this on March 26th of this year. And with that said, obviously Trump went around that, didn't care, bombed the crap out of Iran's three. Now we could talk about how effective the bomb was. It was just theater anyways, but he did do it. He went after, he targeted the 3 facilities. And then when he was asked about it, this is the first thing he said when he was asked about it.
How close do you personally think that they were to getting one? Because Tulsi Gabbard testified in March that the intelligence community said Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
I don't care what she said. So all of this about Director of National Intelligence has to go through all these weeks and weeks of hearings, get the right person. She has to say the right thing. She was firm about Iran not having nuclear weapons. She gets the position. And now when push comes to shove, I don't care because I'm going to go with feelings over facts. And that is the narrative for War on Terror, which we know that playbook with Bush and Cheney. We're going to go with feelings over facts, which means your job isn't needed. We don't need a director of national intelligence because the director of national intelligence is going to disrupt my feelings. And so that's the new message. And that's what was paraded around. We had Mark Rubio. We saw him go on Fox. I won't play that clip right now, but it's Mark Rubio doubling down, very angry, saying, we don't listen. We just know. We just know. We don't care what she says. So what does Tulsi do in this moment where all eyes are on her? You were just talked to this way. They don't care. You're wrong. We don't do things this way. Rubio says we don't do it like that. Okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond? Director of National Intelligence, give us a response. The dishonest media is intentionally taking my testimony out of okay. You literally signed the document, but your testimony was taken out of context, spreading fake news as a way to manufacture division. America has intelligence that Iran is at the point that it can produce a nuclear weapon within weeks or 2 months. Blah, 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 blah. If they decide to finalize the assembly, President Trump has been clear that can't happen. And I agree. Wow. Yeah, some people are saying this is the biggest turnaround, disappointment, FU to my entire career. And we put it above Bernie because Bernie never got into the position that he campaigned on. He never made it. They threw him out. They said no, which is weird because if you think about it, if Bernie was in, he'd be doing the Ukraine thing. He'd be doing isn't that a funny? Is that a horrible thought? Like, what if they had said, yeah, Bernie will roll with you, and he beats Trump, which he would have in the 2016, and then he's doing the same. He's doing Ukraine. He's doing we have a humanitarian crisis, but it's not a genocide. Keep going. Yeah. Just be careful. It'd be the same.
If he can get manipulated to not push back against him clearly getting cheated, then he definitely would have been able to be manipulated had he won. But it was still shocking in a way with Bernie because Tulsi doesn't have as long of a career as Bernie, and Bernie said the same thing, man, for like 50 years, and then all of a sudden he got a little bit more energy from the Democratic Party. And then, they flipped him and made him, like turned him into a sheepdog. Like, oh, well, I believe all these things, but lesser of two evils. And, it's the same thing we saw from Tulsi and RFK. They both ran. Well, they both were calling out both parties for a while. And then all of a sudden, lesser of two evils situation popped up.
Well, let's remind people what Tulsi did do, and we can't take this moment away. This is ingrained in history. If you guys might have forgot, or you weren't paying attention when this happened, but this is one of her greatest moments. And I do want to point out that this happened. This was on the stage of the DNC in 2020, where she single-handedly knocked the hell out of Kamala Harris. She knocked her off that stage. She was never to return. She got 0 votes, and it was because of this.
Bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris.
So they loved her. The crowd ate it up. And Kamala was furious after that. She went around complaining about how the country is racist and sexist. And they said, well, Obama did 8 years. And she goes, well, they're more sexist than racist. They can't do, but they can maybe do but black men. They can't do, but so she was doing all that, whining, complaining. Then Hillary went nuts because she thought they were handpicking Tulsi off of this stage because she got the whole crowd was into her. And Hillary went on a rampage, and she did this right immediately after that. Here's Hillary doing damage control. Not so much damage control for Kamala, just damage control for the DNC in general, and to sideline Tulsi in the process.
Predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of, sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset.
So she's inferring to Tulsi Gabbard in that assessment and throwing in Jill Stein at the same time, because we all live through this whole everybody is a Russian bot if they challenge the Democratic Party.
They control all of our politicians. Like no country in the world controls our politicians the way Russia controls our politicians, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then so of course Tulsi was quick to fight back. Great. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, have finally come out from behind the curtain from day one. And I announced from the day I announced my candidacy, and she goes on from there. That is the Tulsi Gabbard we thought we were getting when she got appointed to National Intelligence Director. Unfortunately, it's not. And now this meme is going around, perfectly suited, perfectly timed, and gives us a lot to kind of process. Fiorella put this up on Truthwire yesterday, and I thought it kind of inspired me to go and get the paper trail, because I want people to see that at one time the two of them were legitimately at each other's throats. They wanted her out of that party, and she was kicked out. She was forced out of the party. RFK Jr. was forced out of the party. Even Elon Musk, in a funny way, was kind of forced out. But you had these figureheads with a lot of clout that were Democrats their entire lives. Oh, I'll throw Joe Rogan in there too. They were Democrats their entire lives, and they made it okay to go over and vote MAGA without calling yourself a MAGA, because the Republicans ran on this election season. They ran as the party of inclusion, the party of let's build a coalition, where the Democrats became exclusive and you have to check all these boxes, and F you if you don't check a box, get the fuck out. So she was a champion of let's go over to the place where inclusion is happening, and I can keep being anti-war. I can keep calling it stuff out.
And she gave the impression that Trump was on the same page as her.
Yes,
on that
because
issue.
nobody on the Republican side were calling her a Russian bot, because they knew she was legitimately calling out the Ukraine war, or I guess the Ukraine war hadn't gotten full effect at the time, but there's this idea that the Democrats were posturizing that Putin, they're planting the seed, and it worked. Their base ate it up. Putin's trying to take over the world. The Republicans were not giving her shit for that. So the door was open for her to come in. So what the hell happened from that point going into that? Just in March, man. She's in there saying, here I am. I'll say what I have to say to get in, but you know my deal. You know I'm against regime change wars. I might be a Zionist, but I guess that's it, man. I hate to keep going back to Zionism, but Is that it? Is it once you're a Zionist, you can't be? What is this? I just don't understand. That's the one, because that's the one thing, right? That's the one thing.
So I think, it's really about maintaining the presence in the Middle East, because, I know there's a lot of debate whether America is Israel's proxy or Israel is America's proxy, and, who's really wagging the tail in this situation. And to be honest, it's something, the truth is, I just believe they're controlled, we're both controlled by forces that are beyond us. And Zionism is the tool to take over that part in the Middle East. So, that's what the evidence points towards for me. So,
yeah. Well, I guess the coalition is failing. They're Elon's out. I think Tulsi's on her way out. I think RFK Jr. is just doing a much better job at hanging on and just going for the breadcrumbs. But at some point, I think that there's going to be a exclamation point over Trump's name on this campaign that it was a bait and switch. It was not the coalition and the anti-war movement. As much as they want to pretend it is, all the people that got him elected are on their way out. But Tulsi, I don't know. She can't even go out with integrity. That's the only thing. Because I think she's done. I don't think she's going to be useful anymore, Jay. But did she really have to turn on herself like that on the way out? I wish she would have had some integrity there. But that's my guess. I think she's on her way out, and she's not going to have any fans when this is over for her.
Yeah, especially because she betrayed like the core issue, like that she went over there for. Like I said, both RFK and Tulsi are, disappointments to different extents, but RFK's core issue was during his campaign was trying to get the country healthy. And while he's not perfect, which we're about to get into, there has been at least some better signs, like coming from the HHS than we are in the foreign policy department. And, it's Tulsi's main thing. It would be like if Kennedy said the COVID shots are safe and effective. So I agree, it's hard to come back from a 180 that hard, at least not with your core base. Maybe the establishment could embrace her and give her a push now because, she's fully in line, but her core base that got her to where she is, it's hard for me to expect anything good out from her at this point. So hopefully we're wrong.